May as well try. Okay, so I'm recording. So this is lesson 4.3. You guys, this lesson will be on your test, okay? And we're going to start talking about quadratic functions. So you guys, when you hear the word quadratic, something should come into your mind immediately. What is a quadratic? It's a parabola, right? So it looks like this, might open up, might open down. And the equation is y equals, what would it be? Some kind of squared. Yeah, that's a quadratic. Okay, make sure that you know that. Okay, so look at this right here. F of x equals 5. You guys know that another name for f of x is y. So if you write y equals 5, the degree of that equation is the biggest exponent that the x contains. But there is no x. So if I added an x, I would have to add an x to the what to not change the equation. What would that be?
1.
X to the, wouldn't it be 1? Wouldn't it be 1 because then I'd be changing it? Well, what kind of x could I add that wouldn't actually be changing the equation? You guys don't know. Say it again.
0.
It is x to the 0. Yeah, x to the 0 is a 1. And it's okay to multiply by 1, and I haven't changed it. So the degree of that is called a 0, because the biggest exponent that the x has is a 0. If you write down y equals 5, and if we graph that, you guys, it would just be a horizontal line crosses the y-axis at 5, so it would look like that. Okay? The next one is y equals 3x plus 2. Everybody in the room, tell me what's the degree of that one? It's a 1, right? And you guys know, if you looked at y equals 3x plus 2, I'm sure that you guys would know that's a line, so that's why it's called a linear function, okay? If you graphed it, it would look something about like this. That's just a very rough sketch of it, but it would look about like that, okay? The next one, y equals 2x a second plus 3x minus 4. Everybody tell me what's the degree of that one? That's a 2, and that is called a quadratic, and that's what we're going to deal with today, are quadratics, okay? Now, you guys, usually when I teach, people totally understand. Like, I rarely have students that say, I don't understand what you're saying when you teach me. That is not a common complaint that I get. And I will tell you, 4th period, some people were like, what are you doing? And so I'll show you where they started to get a little bit confused. There were like maybe 4 or 5 people, just so you can pay extra good attention. And I'll try to maybe slow down a little bit. Okay, so sometimes we're going to have our quadratics written in that form right there. But most of the time they're going to be written in standard form. I think standard form is easier to understand. So everybody write down y equals a times x minus h to the second plus k. That's standard form, okay? So they're both, you know, you could write it both different ways, or both ways. So the vertex is just the ordered pair h comma k. And that's why I like this yellow form right here, guys, because you can look at it and immediately determine what the vertex is without doing any work, okay? The axis of symmetry is always going to be x equals h. So if your vertex is 2, 3, then the axis of symmetry will always just be x equals 2. Super easy. Okay, so if your parabola opens up like that, you guys, then your vertex is right here, and that is a low point. It's a minimum point, okay? If your parabola opens down, then your vertex is right here, and that would be a maximum point. So the vertex is either min or the max, depending on if it opens up or down, okay? Okay, question number 1. I really like question 1A, you guys, because it's just me actually with you face-to-face going over lesson 3.5. You had to watch 3.5, and so it's good. I get a minute to kind of do some of these problems with you. So do you see how this final graph is f of x? So this guy right here is supposed to be called f of x. The other 2 guys are going to be called something different, like maybe g of x or h of x or m of x or whatever you choose it to be. Okay, so there's g of x. You always start with the parent graph. So just put x to the second Why did I write that? Because it's a parent graph. Then you draw the parent graph. So you go pencil at the origin, normal stretch on a parabola is right one up one, left one up one, then right 2 up 4, left 2 up 4, draw your parabola in. This is so simple. Most of you will get these problems completely right, and that's so good because it's a really high point question, okay? Okay, the next one right here, everybody stop for just a second. Is there a reflection anywhere on that graph? Tell me that. No. How do you know there's no reflection? There's no negative. So if you do have a reflection, you must reflect right now, okay? But we don't have one. So then the next thing I would love you to do is if you could do that number right there. So tell me what the -3 does to the graph. Shifts it down 3. So you literally write the word down 3. Then you write the equation from the previous graph, which is x to the second, and then adjust it so it's down 3, so just put a -3 after it. Then go from the previous graph and just shift it down 3, normal stretch, right 1 up 1, right 2 up 4, graph it in, there you go. Now we're to our last one. So the final equation is always going to match the original equation, okay? And the thing that we haven't talked about is the 2. Tell me what the 2 does to your graph, everybody. It stretches it, okay? Why not a shrink? Why'd you say stretch and not shrink? Because it's bigger than 1, right? Should I just say stretch? Is that okay? You can't just say stretch because there's such thing as a horizontal stretch and a vertical stretch, and they're different. So this is always going to be a vertical stretch, and you're going to say by a factor of 2 because that's the number in front. Okay, so now look what you do, guys. Normal stretch for a parabola is 1, 1, 2, 4, but then you take the 1 and the 4 and you multiply it by the number that's in front. So you'd go 1 times 2 is 2 and 4 times 2 is 8. So that's what your movement's really going to be. Okay, so go from the previous graph, the vertex is right there, 0, -3, and now stretch it 2 times taller. So right 1 up 2, left 1 up 2, and then right 2 up 8, 5, 6, right on the vertex, right on the graph, last point on the graph. Curve it in, looks like that, done. Okay, 9-point question. Look at this. Equation, description, graph, equation, description, graph, equation, description, graph, 9-point question. How awesome if everybody could get a 9 out of 9 on that guy, right? And I think everybody could, okay? All right, standard form, we already talked about this. You guys know that A is a stretch or a shrink. We already talked about when it's a stretch and when it's a shrink. Axis of symmetry, we talked about the fact that it's x equals h, and the vertex is hk. Okay? Needs to do what? I'm sorry?
Elizabeth Bishop needs to
Check out. Okay, thank you. So just watch the video, okay, honey? If I can get it to record. If not, there's one still there from last year, so yeah. Okay, so here's what you need to know about the y-intercept, you guys. To find the y-intercept, you're going to let x be a 0. Have a good weekend, honey. So that's what your answer is going to look like, 0, comma, some number. To find the x-intercept, you're going to let y be a 0. So the answer is always going to be some number, comma, 0. So it's really so straightforward. Okay, here we go, question 2. Find the x-intercept and y-intercept of the quadratic functions. Okay, so look what I'm going to do, guys. I know that I have to be so careful in this class, and everything has to be written, you know, in a particular way. So to find the y-intercept, I know to let x be a 0, so I'm going to set myself up to write that answer. And to find the x-intercept, I'm going to let y be a 0. And both of those are going to require some work. So to find the y-intercept, let x be a 0. So you go f of 0 is equal to 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 8. Some of you really need to work on your work presentation. See this equal sign? I want you to put an equal sign right underneath it, and then I want you to put, what's that equal to? 8. Yeah, so it's 0, comma 8 and you're done. Okay, so be careful with your work. Do you really have to show that work that I just showed? Yes, you do. And it would take you longer to argue about it than it would to just do it. So it's easier to just do it, okay? Find the x-intercept by letting y be a 0. So go into that equation and let y be a 0. So everybody go x to the second minus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Tell me with one word what we're going to do right here. We're going to factor. Good. So it goes to x and x. The signs are the same. They're both negative, so it's going to be minus minus. 4 and 2 multiply to give me 8 and add to give me 6. Okay, look at my line. My line is an incomplete sentence in an English class. Okay, math is just like English, and you're trying to communicate something, and if you're not thorough, then you're not communicating properly. What's wrong with my line? Equals 0. Good. Okay, now everybody look right here. I'm sure you guys already know this. Look right here. I have a number on a piece of paper squished up in this hand. Same thing over here. You don't know what numbers are on my paper, but I do tell you this. If I take this number and I multiply it by this number, then I get a 0. What do you know about my numbers? One of them is a 0. Could they both be a 0? Yes, they could. So I know that x minus 2 is 0, or x minus 4 is 0, or they're both 0. So everybody go, x minus 2 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. Then solve the first one, x equals 2. Solve the second one, x equals 4. You do not have to write that line, x minus 2 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. I just wrote it to help explain. So I know that I have an x-intercept at 2, 0. I have a second x-intercept at 4, 0. Highlight my answer. Done. Okay? By the way, sorry, this is kind of random. The last day to drop this class is when? Tomorrow. Okay? I'm sending out a text today. You guys can really probably just disregard it because I'm telling you right now. So I'm not encouraging you to drop. You know, that's not where I'm coming from. I just want you to know tomorrow's the day where you're in or you're not. Okay? After tomorrow, if you go away, you'll get a W, which does not look good. Okay? Okay, here we go right here. To find the y-intercept, I'm going to let x be 0. So guys, I'm going to go 0, comma something. To find an x-intercept, I'm going to let y be 0. So it's something, comma 0. To find the y-intercept, let x be 0. So everybody just go g of 0 is 2 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0 plus 6. Put an equal sign right underneath the other equal sign. I know you didn't need to show that work. I know you can look at it and know, but sometimes we just have to jump through hoops. So what do you get? A 6. Put in the 6 and you're done. Not that big of a deal, right? Everybody go 2x to the second plus 8x plus 6 equals 0. I'm letting my y be a 0. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit in depth on this. What would you do next? Tell me that. GCF, which is a 2. I would take out a 2. Here's a question. Everybody stop. If you're solving, do you have to take out a 2? No. Do you have to take out a 2? The answer to the question is no, you don't. Okay, draw a line right here. We're going to do it both ways. I just want to show you that it doesn't matter. I would absolutely take out a 2. It's so much easier if those numbers are smaller. So everybody take out a 2, and you're left with x to the second plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Now keep factoring. So the x to the second goes to an x and an x. Signs are the same. They're both positive. 3 and 1 multiply to give me 3 and add to give me 4. So there we go. My line is wrong. Look at what I've written. Somebody tell me what's wrong with that. The 2 is still supposed to be there, right? Okay, now everybody look at this and answer this question. How many things am I multiplying together right here in that bottom equation? How many? There are 3. Yay if you said 3. Look, here, here, and here. Could the 2 ever be equal to a 0? No, so you don't worry about that. The x plus 1 gives me a negative 1. The x plus 3 gives me a negative 3. So I have negative 1, comma 0, negative 3, comma 0, and I'm done. Now I want to say a few more things, so everybody listen. True or false? No matter what is outside of here, I can always disregard it when I'm finding my solutions to x, and it's never going to result in another solution. True or false? That's false. What could be out there that would give you another solution? An x to the anything, first, second, third, could have a number with it in front of it, and if you did have that, what would it give you? It would give you a 0. Okay, off to the side, write this down. So 2x to the second plus 8x plus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, now I can factor that right now to this. Look, guys, 2x plus 2 times x plus 3 equals 0. That factors to that. If I set 2x plus 2 equal to 0, the 2 comes over and becomes a negative 2. Then I divide by 2. That gives me a negative 1. That gives me a negative 3. Okay, so I get the same answer either way. I would absolutely take out that GCF. I think factoring that is going to be way tougher if you don't. Okay, who says, I'm good, I feel good, let me see. Okay, yay. Okay, now we're going to complete the square. So, everybody listen. Okay, listen for a second. I think that everything that we've done in this class so far, you have already done in another class. Am I correct? Yes. Okay. I promise it will not always be like that. Okay. We're going to start doing things that you haven't seen before. Listen. Some of you are doing things in a different way that you've learned in a previous class. I don't care. I don't care. That's great. I just want you to get it right. Okay. I just have to be able to tell what you're doing. This right here, I do it a certain way. You may have learned it a different way. And that's where people, I think, started getting confused during period 4. Okay, so just stick with me. I'll show you where they really started to lose it. It's not right here. Okay, completing the square to get this in standard form. Step number 1, take the constant, which is right here, and move it over to the left-hand side. So now I have f of x minus 1 equals x to the second plus 8x. Okay, step number 2, look at the leading coefficient. If it's anything other than a 1, you need to factor it out. You guys, this is the leading coefficient. It's the number in front of the x squared. There's nothing there. So what is it? It's a 1. So there is no step number 2. There's nothing to take out because it's just a 1. Okay? Now I have to do my blank. So now I want you to go f of x minus 1 plus blank equals x to the second plus 8x plus blank. Take the linear term. That would be this 8 right here. Okay? Divide it by 2 and then square it. So you go 8 divided by 2 is a 4. 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to put the 16 right here. The next step, number 4, says balance the left side of the equation. So if I add 16 over here, I have to add 16 over here. Step number 5 says to simplify the left and factor the right. So the left would then be f of x plus 15 equals, now I'm factoring the right-hand side. So the x to the second goes to an x. Do you see how this 8x is a positive? The positive goes there. Then the square root of 16 is a 4, and the whole thing is squared. People raise their hand, and this is what they say. What did you do to get from there to there? We can say it in one word. What's the word? You factored it. If you go x plus 4 times x plus 4, you get x to the second plus 8x plus 16. So I just factored it. Then the last step is to move the constant back over. So you have f of x equals x plus 4 squared minus 15, and that's your answer. Okay, who says I understood that? Raise your hand. Okay, great. Underneath that, I want you to write y equals a times x minus h to the second plus k. And then I want you to write a equals, h equals, and k equals. So the a is in front of the parenthesis. There's nothing there, it's a 1. The k is at the end. That's a negative 15. The h is just a little bit more tricky. So look, guys, the x's line up. The plus and the minus do not line up. So h is not 4. Can you tell me what h is? It is a -4, okay? Everybody write this down. The x lies. I want you to remember that phrase. So whatever's with the x is a liar. Just like when we're graphing, this is a +4, so you would think right 4, but it's the opposite because it's with the x. So that would really be left 4, therefore your h is the opposite sign, -4. Who says gotcha? Let me see up high. Okay, great. Okay, let's come right here and let's do question A. Okay, complete the square and get this thing in standard form. Okay, you guys listen. I'm going to do a couple of steps in one. I think you're ready for that. So look right here. First thing I notice, that's a 1x squared. I'm not going to have to factor anything out because it's clean. It's nice and simple. So I'm going to do a couple of things. Look what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the 8 and I'm going to pull it over. So everybody go f of x minus 8 plus blank equals. So all I've done is move my 8 and added a blank. Okay, what do I have on the other side? Well, that's what's left. So it's x to the second minus 6x plus blank, like that. Okay, take the linear term, which is a 6. Divide it by 2, you get a 3. Raise that to the second, you get a 9. So I'm going to add 9 here, and I'm going to add 9 there. That is correct. Okay, everybody stop. I said the linear term was a 6. The linear coefficient is not a 6. What is it? It's a -6. Why didn't I do this? -6 divided by 2 is a -3. A -3 squared is, why didn't I do all that? It's going to be positive anyway. So the negative just makes it tougher. So don't worry about the sign, just worry about the number. Okay? Okay, let's clean up the left. So you have f of x plus 1 equals factor the right. You guys, it's always going to factor perfectly. That's why we do completing the square. So the x a second goes to an x. See how the 6x is a minus right there? The minus goes right there. The square root of 9 is a 3, and the whole thing is squared. And now solve it for f of x. So you have f of x equals x minus 3 squared minus 1, and there you go. Okay, let's do the vertex. The h is here, but remember the x lies. So my x coordinate of the vertex is a 3. The y coordinate is a -1. The axis of symmetry is always x equals what on this one? It's whatever the x coordinate is, 3. Good. Okay, 2 different ways to graph it. Let me show you one way and I'm going to show you another way. The vertex is 3, -1. Go right 3, down 1. There's my vertex. Normal stretch, because the leading coefficient's a 1, so I'm going to go right 1 up 1, left 1 up 1, right 2 up 4, left 2 up 4, draw it in, there's my graph, I'm done. The other way you can graph this is think about it like lesson 3.5. It's a normal parabola shifted down 1 and right 3. Down 1, right 3, normal stretch. It's the same graph no matter how you think about it. Okay? Okay, that's it. That's the whole problem. Who says I understand that? Raise your hand. Okay, here's where my period 4 started freaking out. Okay, so I'm going to slow down and you're going to pay good attention. Okay, this one's going to be tougher. Everybody stick right with me. How do I know it's going to be tougher? Because that -3, right? I'm going to have to factor out a -3. So watch with me, okay? Bring the 15 over, change the sign. So everybody go g of x plus 15, okay? I'll write a line that's really not necessary. I'm writing it so that you don't get confused. Equals -3x squared minus 12x. So that's step 1, pulling it over. Step number 2 is determining if you have to factor something out, which we do. Okay, so now I'm going to write it as g of x plus 15 plus blank equals. Now I'm going to take a -3 out of those two things. So I'm going to go -3. Now, watch this. I do the sign and then I do the number because I think it's easier. So if I take out a negative, what does it do to those two signs? Tell me. Changes them, right? So they're both negative, therefore they both become positive. Now forget about the signs. I just figured out they're both positive. Now let's figure out the number. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, x squared. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and you've still got that x, okay? Then you go plus blank. So let me stop right there. I took out a -3. I know my negative would go to positive. 3 divided by 3 is a 1x squared. 12 divided by 3 is a 4x. Who says I understand? Raise your hand. Do a big raise up. Okay, great. Take your linear term, which is a 4. Divide it by 2 and you get a 2. Raise it to the second and you get a 4. So this is a 4. You do not balance the other side with a 4. That's wrong. Somebody tell me why that's wrong. What am I really supposed to put over there? It's really a -12. Look right here. Don't write this, just look. If I distributed the -3, I'd have -3x a second minus 12x minus 12. So it looks like I'm adding 4, but I'm really adding the -12 because the 4 is multiplied by the -3. So if you factor something out, your blanks will not be the same. So this guy right here is a -12. Who says, I understand? Give me feedback. Okay, yay. Let's keep going. G of x plus 3 equals -3 parenthesis. You've got your x. Tell me what the sign is after the x. Lots of people mess up right here. What's this? Is it x plus or x minus? How do you know it's plus? Because easiest way to look at it, look up above, you drop it down. So if this is a plus, then this is a plus. Whereas over here, this was a minus, so this was a minus. So it just matches. Yeah. Then the square root of 4 is 2. The whole thing's squared. The last step is to get it all on one side. So g of x equals -3 times x plus 2 squared minus 3. There's your standard form. Okay. Vertex. X lies. So it says plus 2, so my guy's minus 2. The k does not lie. It's a -3. The axis of symmetry is -2. Is that full points or no points?
No.
No points. What's wrong with it? It's x equals -2. The vertex is -2, -3. Guys, go left 2, down 3. Talk to me about this parabola. Does it open up or does it open down? It opens down. Talk to me about the stretch. Normal or abnormal? Abnormal. Super skinny. So instead of going right 1, down 1, I'm going to go right 1, down, tell me. 3. Am I already off the grid? So that's going to be enough. It's going to look like that, and I'm done. Okay? You guys, just so you understand, because I feel like I need to, the axis of symmetry is just a vertical line that goes right through that vertex. What axis does the red line cross? It crosses the x-axis. Where does it cross the x-axis? -2. That's where that comes from. Okay? We're never going to even talk about it. You'll write it down and that will be the extent of it. Okay? All right. So my class made it through the rest of it. So I think that was the worst of the lesson right there. Okay? Okay. There's another way to come up with the vertex without completing the square. And that's it. Okay? So everybody look at this. Right there. A max or a min. That's just a vertex. Okay? So what they're saying is, that's how you find the vertex. Well, you guys, the vertex is h, k. I bet you look at that notation and it kind of scares you. You're like, I don't know what that means. Okay? Well, let's figure it out. All this means is h is -b over 2a. Where do you get a and b? Write down ax squared plus bx plus c and put a y equals in the front of it. That's where you get your a, b, and c. Look at the next part. Looks scary. You feel like, oh, I don't get that. Watch. K is f of negative b over 2a. What does f of negative b over 2a mean? What does that mean? Say it again. It means a y. It's the y coordinate of the vertex. But what does that notation mean? You guys know. We've done it. What do? It's like f of x. You plug it in. So all you do is take that h, which is negative b over 2a, and you plug it in. So I'm going to say plug in h. That's all you do. Take that h, plug it into the equation, and that's how you get your y. Okay, let's do it. Okay, question 4. You guys, you have to be careful, okay, and listen. Find the vertex, find the stretch, graph it without putting it in standard form, find the x-intercept and y-intercept. Okay, right here. Without putting the equation in standard form. If you read a question like this on your test, and you complete the square, get it in standard form, and graph it, that's not the right method. They want you to know how to do both methods. So this is not completing the square. Let's write that down. Not completing the square. When do you know to complete the square? They're going to say, put it in standard form. That means complete the square. Okay, here we go. Underneath that, I want you to write down y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Then I want you to write down a is a negative 2. That's in front of the x squared. B is a negative 4. That's in front of the x. C is a negative 2. What I've just written on that problem is not required when you do it. I'm just setting this up for the first time we do it. Now I want you to write this down. My vertex is HK. To find my H equals negative B over 2A. So that's negative 4. That's negative B over 2 times A, which is a negative 2. So all I did is plug in what B is and plug in what A was, right? So that gives me a positive 4 over a positive 4, which is a 1. No. Yes. Thank you. The bottom's a negative 4. So now I know my vertex is negative 1 comma something. Negative b over 2a gives me the x coordinate of my vertex. Everybody in the room, how do I find the y coordinate of my vertex? Plug it in. That's easy, right? Everybody go h of negative 1 equals negative 2 parenthesis, negative 1 close it, squared, minus 4 times negative 1 minus 2. I want you to put an equal sign right underneath that equal sign. Then I want you to grab your calculator, your $10 calculator you bought on Amazon. And we're going to put that whole thing in our calculator, just the way we see it, okay? Everybody go negative 2, parenthesis, negative 1, close the parenthesis. Left-hand side, 6 buttons down, hit the x squared button, minus 4 parenthesis, negative 1, close it, minus 2, enter, and you get a 0. So my vertex is negative 1 comma 0. Okay, so that goes here. The axis just means what's the axis of symmetry? That's x equals negative 1. Let's graph it. Go left 1, but don't go up or down. You're right there. Bless you. Everybody, now how am I going to graph this? I don't have all the other stuff. How do I graph it? So easy. Look at the what? Look at the stretch. This negative 2 is all you need to be able to finish it. Everybody in the room tell me, does my parabola open up or down? Down. Normal stretch or abnormal? Abnormal. So it's not 1, 1, it's 1, 2. And then it's not 2, 4, it's 2 what? 8. That puts you 1 off your grid, just so you don't have to sit and count. Draw it in. There you go. Okay? X-intercept and Y-intercept. You guys, how do I write intercepts? How do I present those answers? Ordered pairs, right? To find the X-intercept, you let Y be 0. To find the Y-intercept, you let X be a 0. But those are clean points. Look at your graph. You don't have to show any work. So the X-intercept is -1, 0. The Y-intercept is 0, -2, and you're done. Okay? Okay, let's do this one over here. This one's kind of ugly, just so you know. Gets ugly. Okay, I like a heads up. When something's going to be hard, I want to know before I start. It gets ugly. Okay, you have to write this down. When you do it on your homework, when you do it on your tests, when you do it on your quizzes, all the time. Write down, my vertex is HK. H is -b over 2a. So that's negative. B is a -16, so it's -16 over 2 times A, which is a 4. Guys, look how nice my work looks. I can read everything. It's so clear, okay? Put in equals here. That's 16 over 8, which gives me 2. So now I know my vertex is 2, something. How do I find the Y? Plug it in. So write this down. F of 0 equals. F of 2. Yes, sorry. F of 2 equals 4 times 2 squared minus 16 times 2 plus 10. Grab your calculator. You can literally just stick that thing in your calculator. Okay? So everybody go 4 parentheses, 2, close it. Hit your x squared button on the left. Minus 16 parentheses, 2, close it, plus 10 equals, and you get -6. So my vertex is +2, -6. Okay, let's write that down here. The axis of symmetry is 2. X equals 2. Okay, now let's graph it. Everybody go right 2 down 6. Okay, right there. Look at your stretch. It's a 4. Does it open up or does it open down? It opens up. Instead of 1, 1, I'm going to go 1, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of 2, 4, I would be going 2, what is it? It is 16. And I'm off my grid, but look what I want you to do. I want you to add 2 more marks right here on the axis, and then 2 more marks over here as well. Okay? And then I want you to put a dot. So I should probably edit that on the note so it goes up that high. Then I want you to draw it in. The reason we extended the grid is because look what we're going to do now. We have to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Well, I just found the y-intercept by extending it by 2, so that's why I did it. So the y-intercept is going to be 0, comma. You guys, I was down 6, and then I went up 16. So what would that be right there? That would be a 10. You can count it or figure it out, okay? Now, who says this has not been hard? She said this was ugly, and this is not ugly. Raise your hand. Okay, here's ugly. Here comes the ugly. Okay, so stay calm. To find the x, look at the graph. Is the x-intercept pretty? It's not pretty. I do know to find the x-intercept, I'm going to let y be a 0. So go into the equation, and wherever you see a y, put a 0. So everybody go 4x squared minus 16x plus 10 equals 0. There are multiple things that you can do right here, okay? What would you do? Be specific. What would you do? I would take out a 2. I'd get those numbers as small as I can. So I would take out a 2. Then I'm left with 2x to the second minus 8x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now I would factor it. So I write my 2. My 2x squared goes to 2x in plain x. The signs are the same, they're both negative, okay? So guys, it's going to be 5 and 1. So maybe the 5 goes there and the 1 goes there. When I do 5 and 1, look what I get. I get a negative 10x and a negative 1x. That does not give me a negative 8x. So I know it's not going to be like that, okay? So I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to put the 5 there and the 1 there. So that's going to give me a negative 2x and a negative 5x. That's a negative 7x, which is not a negative 8x. This thing does not do what? Does not factor. Okay, so get rid of the attempt we have right there. So I have some people that say no solution at this point. Is that what you do?
No.
Not that lucky, right? What do you have to do? Quadratic. Come off to the side. Everybody write x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I have people in 1050 who miss questions like this because they don't know the quadratic formula. That's a joke. Sorry. That's a joke. So you better know that formula. You've now done it for how many years, right? Okay. Now I'm going to show only one? No way. Well, that's enough. 1 year is enough. Okay, I'm going to show you something right here that I bet some of you don't know. Okay. Look, this is important. I can make this problem 4 times easier for you if you listen to me. It's a lot. Okay, look. If I use quadratic formula and I do a is 4, b is a negative 16, c is a 10, and I solve it and I get x equals blah, blah, blah. Then I do the same thing, quadratic formula, but I use a is 2, b is a negative 8, c is 5, I get x equals blah, blah, blah. How do my solutions compare to each other? How do they compare? Identical. They're exactly the same. Okay? I know some of you don't believe me right now. And I feel like I don't really have time to prove it to you right now. But I will prove it to you. Okay? It's the same answer. So why would you ever choose those big ones? The big ones are 4 times tougher. It's so much more simplifying and so much more reducing. So never use the big ones. Always use the small ones. Yes?
Would you end up having to multiply by 2?
No, you don't. You don't. Do you want me to show you? Who says show me? It'll take me 2 minutes. Watch. Just kick back and watch me just do some crazy math. Watch. Yellow. X equals 16 plus or minus the square root of 16 squared, which is 256, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 10, all over 2 times 4, which is an 8. When I put that middle stuff into my calculator, I get 16 plus or minus the square root of 96 all over 8. Okay, I can't reduce, but I can simplify the 96. So 96 is 2 times 48. 48 is 2 times 24. 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. Here's a pair of 2's. Here's a pair of 2's. They both come out. So I have 16 plus or minus 2 2's out there. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 2 times 3 is 6 all over 8. Now I can reduce. 4 goes into all those things. So I have 4 plus or minus 1 squared is 6 all over 2. That's my answer. Who says I understand that? I followed you. I know it was fast. Now you do it, okay? Draw a line, or you don't have to draw a line. I will. Now we're going to do the same thing, but now we're going to use the pink numbers, okay? So everybody go x equals negative 8. Change the sign. That's an 8. Plus or minus the square root. Please never put negative 8 squared. You will miss it. Instead of writing negative 8 squared, go straight to, tell me, 64. It's always going to be a positive. Just write it down already squared. Minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 5, all over 2 times 2, which is a 4. Everybody stop. I've done two things wrong. One is annoying. The other one I will take points off. Someone tell me what I've done wrong. Raise your hand and explain what you see that is not okay. Yeah.
You didn't underline the 8.
Yes, the 8, the line's supposed to go over. Do you think that's annoying or do you think that's points off? It is points off because this that I have right there and this right here are two very different things. That's points off. What else is that I do that's annoying? The square root goes all the way across. Yes. Okay, grab your calculator and go, see this right here? Highlight that. And what I'm saying to you is never figure out that on your own. Like seriously, 30% of the time people mess up on that. Okay, so just stick it in that $10 calculator. Okay, so go 64 minus 4 parenthesis 2, close it, parenthesis 5, close it, parenthesis, and you get 24. 8 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 4. Can I reduce right now? Can I reduce everything by 4? Yes or no? No. Why not? The 24 is in. That's why. Okay, so I can't do that, but I can break down the 24. So 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. These two 2's come out as a single 2. So now I have 8 plus or minus 2 square root of, talk to me, 6 all over 4. Can I reduce now? Yes, I'm looking at 8 and 2 and 4. What goes into all those numbers? 2. So now I have 4 plus or minus 1 square root of 6 all over 2. And look at that. Told you. Was it really 4 times easier? Do you think that this guy was really 4 times easier than that guy? Tell me. I don't think so. I think it was easier, but I don't think it was 4 times easier. There are some problems. I'm not kidding. 4 times easier. So take the small guys, okay? So come over here, go to this right here, and write down 4 plus or minus the square root of 6 all over 2. Is that what it was? Yeah. Okay, comma 0. Okay, this one right here, I don't think it's necessary, and it also doesn't really work out right. So we're just going to skip that guy, okay? And we're going to go right here to 5, because I feel like everybody pretty much understands. Okay, a company has found that the revenue in dollars from the sale of pagers is a function of the unit price that it charges. If the revenue R is given by this equation, what unit price should be charged to maximize the revenue? What is the maximum revenue? First of all, what's a pager? Isn't that funny? It's something in a museum. Smart Alec. I was alive when they were a thing, so be careful. Now, doctors have them, I think. Do they still have them? Yeah. Like those of you who watch Grey's Anatomy, right? So they have them right here. Somebody goes to a landline. In my day, it used to be a landline. They call your pager. You look, and it says, here's a phone number. Go call them. They have to go landline and call them. That was before cell phones, okay? I should probably change it, but I think it's kind of fun to talk about it. Okay, everybody write X equals and Y equals. Whenever you do a word problem, that's always how I want you to start, okay? And now you're like, this lady's crazy because there's not even an X or a Y in the problem. I know that, but I know your brain thinks in terms of X and Y. So we're going to connect it to what you already know, okay? This equation is solved for R of P. So do you think that the R of P is the X or do you think it's the Y? It is the Y. So the Y is the R of P. And what does the R of P stand for? It stands for revenue. That's how much money you make. The X is represented by what variable, everybody? That is the P. And what does that stand for? It stands for the unit price. There is a word in here that's jumping out at you that tells you how to do this problem. What's the word that's jumping at you? It is maximize. They're trying to maximize the Y. The revenue is the Y. Guys, everybody look so you understand this. This is a parabola that opens down. How do I know that? It's got a negative. That vertex is going to be a maximum. So all they're asking me for is the vertex. That's it. So it's exactly what I just did. So I just go, my vertex is HK. H is negative B over 2A. That's negative 1900 over 2. It's the A is a negative 1/2. You guys, can I put negative 0.5? Is that okay? What do you think? You can, sure, they're exactly the same thing. So that gives me negative 1900 over negative 1, which is 1900. Now everybody stop. What does that stand for? The x coordinate of my vertex. What does the x stand for? Unit price. Read the question. What unit price should be charged? That's our answer. Every word problem has a label. What's the label that goes with the 1900? A dollar sign. Put a dollar sign, add a comma, there's your answer. But we're not done. What is the maximum revenue? Guys, look. Revenue is Y. What are they asking me to do? Plug it in. It's exactly the same thing, guys. So it's R of 1900 is negative 1/2 times 1900 squared plus 1900 times 1900. Put an equal sign underneath the other equal sign. Grab your calculator. You can go negative 0.5 or negative 1 divide 2. It doesn't matter. Parenthesis 1900, close it. Hit your x squared plus 1900, parenthesis 1900, close it. Hit enter. And you get 1,805,000. What's my label? Dollar sign. What does it stand for? The most money that this company can make. 1.8, little over $1.8 million. We're done. We're done. Yes, honey.
If you're doing a problem like that on like your assignment, do you need to put like a sentence with it, like?
No.
For
No.
problems?
Just like that. Yeah, thank you, honey. Good